Perek Tes Halacha Yud Beis. We're learning Hilchos Melochim. Asher Chetz HaBehemo. If somebody slaughters an animal, afilu shochet bo shnei simonim, even if he was slaughtered and both simonim were slaughtered, kol zman she mefacheses, as long as it is shaking, eva ubos ha'porosh mimeno, the limb or the meat or the meat that separates from it, asur l'bnei noach, are forbidden to bnei noach, shem eva min hachai, because it's considered something that comes from a living person. However, Yisrael, once he slaughters an animal, the shchita permits him on a kosher animal to eat from it, and zake eva ibosam min hachai, because it permitted him to eat from it. Now we come to Perek Tes Halacha Yud Gimel. Kol she'osa al Yisrael mishum eva min hachai, osa al bnei noach. Anything that's forbidden for Yisrael as eva min hachai, it's forbidden on bnei noach. V'yesh bnei noach hayovim v'lo Yisrael. There are things though that is considered by a goy eva min hachai, not by Yisrael. Shebnei noach echad behemes v'chayo. By bnei noach, it doesn't matter whether any animal domesticated or any wild animal, bein tmeya, bein tahira, whether it's tomei or it's tahir, chayav and olav mishum eva. He's liable for a limb mishum bosa min hachai, because it's a bosa min hachai. The eva bosa ha'porosh min ha'mafacheses, and a limb or meat that separates from an animal that is shaking. Even if a Jew cut the shchita and cut the two simonim, it's forbidden to bnei noach mishum eva min hachai. However, a Jew, even if it's still shaking, the shchita permits it, and it's not called eva min hachai, it's not called bosa min hachai, because shchita considers the animal to be dead even though it's moving. Because the Mishnah explains that two things are forbidden to bnei noach, even though they permitted to Yisrael. Yisrael are liable because eva min hachai only what they can eat. Bnei noach are also eva min hachai, even in animals that are not kosher. Because by a Jew it's forbidden anyway because he can't eat it. When he slaughters the majority of the two simonim in an animal, there's no esa min hachai to Yisrael. For bnei noach, even after the shchita, it's an esa eva min hachai. And so Rambam codifies the halacha in the laws of forbidden foods, and that the limb from an animal is only by a Jew, only by animals that are kosher. It's forbidden if it's eva min hachai of animals and wild animals and wild animals, even if they're not kosher. The Kezer Mishnah connects and questions how the Rambam explained the Gemara Chulin. Somebody cuts off a piece of animal meat from an animal which is kosher before the life which is slaughtered before the life leaves it. It's permitted for a goy and a Yisrael. There's no forbiddenness of eva min hachai. And there are those who say that as long as the animal is quivering, for bnei noach would be considered a limb from a live animal. The Gemara is that both a Jew and a goy are permitted in this meat that was cut off, with this limb. How would the Rambam deal with that? And he brings from the Rashbo, who says the Yisrael who wants to bring a goy, he can give him from the innards of the animal or the meat that was taken off before the animal's totally lifeless by a kosher animal which can be slaughtered. When he slaughters it, he can give it to a goy, and there's no Israel of Bostoner Rebbe Nachai because Yisrael slaughtered it. But when it's a non-kosher animal, even if a Jew slaughtered it, or a kosher animal that a goy slaughtered, anything that comes from it is forbidden for a goy, as long as even after And even the meat that was taken off before it died is forbidden even after it dies, and the shlit does not help. And by a tahora that a goy slaughtered, it's not considered slaughtering. The Rashba argues that the Rambam didn't write so. Here in Halacha Teshit Gimel, he says Yisrael is permitted and the goy is forbidden, and he doesn't know the reason. And that Bryce, it says specifically that a kosher animal that Yisrael slaughtered it would be permitted to a ben noach, like the Ketzer Mishnah questioned, and the Rashba too remains with a question. The Lechem Mishnah answers the Rambam pushes us. It says this halacha is not la halacha. This price is not la halacha. The price permits a goy because there's nothing with the reasoning that there's nothing that Yisrael is permitted and the goy is forbidden. Now, how could the Jew be allowed to eat it and the goy forbidden? In Sanhedrin 59a, we said regarding a captured woman in war that goyim cannot do the same concept of capture. And even though Yisrael is permitted in this captured woman, and for a goy it's forbidden. So to here, it could be, it's considered a goy, according to the Rambam, because he's not included in the laws of shchita. Yisrael is permitted. The Mishnah brings from Taisus, Chulin 33a, and they questioned this and they answered it. And the Rashash states witness that it's left with a question. It was for sure that the Rambam is of the opinion that these two sugyas, these two discussions, different areas of the Shas, are of the opinion like Rav Acha by Yaakov, and the Bryce who disagrees is not la halacha. The Shach, and you're there, besides the Marashal, that by a goy's animal, even if the soul slaughtered it, since the goy is not commanded about slaughtering, the shchita does not permit it, and it's if it was slaughtered by a goy. And that's how he wants to explain the Rambam the Smag, that are of the opinion like him. So it would seem that the shchita would not work. Some Soiva points out, if you look in the Amshel Shloima, you'll see that he says even a goy's animal, the Yisrael slaughtered, there's an ism of acheses, and even for the Yisrael would be forbidden all the time of acheses. His intent is only to say that it's not, until it's not dead, it's not permitted. You can't say like the Marashal, the Rambam, there's an afkamina whether the animal is Torah, if it belongs to Yisrael and the Yisrael slaughtered it, and therefore Yisrael is permitted, and therefore it's permitted to the goy. As a goy's animal, if the Yisrael slaughtered it, it's forbidden for the goy and the Yisrael. Because the question is, why didn't the Rambam make that differentiation? Because the Godol cites the question of the Ketzer Mishnah, explains, we can explain the words of the Rambam, the Smag, the Yisrael's mutter. And the goy also is not talking about when he eats from the meat after it died. Even for the goy would be mutter, because the shchita permitted it, because it wasn't taken from a live animal. Talking about that the goy eats from the meat when the animal is still shaking. Yisrael is forbidden in it because you're not allowed to eat then, even though there's no forbiddenness of menachai after you slaughtered it. If he ate from it, he transgresses on this transgression, prohibition, negative prohibition. You should not eat while the blood is there. But the goy, the animal, the meat is forbidden because of menachai. The reason by goy after shchita, when it dies, it's permitted to eat the meat that's separated when it was shaking, is because now the Yisrael is also mutter, and we come back to the rule that there's nothing that for Yisrael is permitted, and for Ben Noach is also. Or the entire time that it's shaking is forbidden to the Jew, because the Yisrael lo Adam. Therefore, on the goy, there remains the Isra of Eva Ben Achai. And the Rambam is very careful to say it's forbidden to Ben Noach Mishum Eva Ben Achai, even though to Yisrael the forbiddenness comes from do not eat from the blood. Because when it's shaking, the Ben Noach, the forbiddenness remains because it's forbidden to a Jew. But if it would be permitted to a Jew, then a goy could eat it. And that he questions furthermore that here in Halacha Gimel we mentioned Yud Beis, that even though it was slaughtered, and as long as it's shaking, right, it's forbidden. And the Maham Shiv points out that the answer to the Lesher Mishnah is difficult. He questions, the Gemara says that Yisrael slaughtered an animal that's not kosher. It doesn't permit the Eivim Menachai. If when it's shaking, it would be Eivim Menachai for the Goy. The Gemara could have made a differentiation by Be'em Torah, whether he did it for the Goy or he did it for the Yisrael. Because a non-kosher animal is always forbidden to Yisrael, and there's no novelty about the fact that you can't slaughter a non-kosher animal. It doesn't have an effect. Ma'am Shiv himself answers in the Godol. The Rambam is talking about there's a forbiddenness of Eivim Achai for Ben Noach, even by a kosher animal that Yisrael slaughtered it, is when it's shaking, it hasn't died, and he says, and that's when he ate it. And he infers this from that language of the Rambam, that an animal, domesticated animal or wild animal, they are liable because both of Eivim and Achai, by Eivim, also they come from a Vacheses, from an animal that's shaking, right? It's also forbidden because of Eivim and Achai. And usually he would also say the laws of lashes, chorus and Krom. It wouldn't be enough that he writes it's forbidden. Why didn't he write by Eva Bosa that separates from an animal that's shaking? The Ben Noach is liable because of Eva and Achai, he would be by a non-kosher animal. It must be that Ben Noach is only forbiddenness. Yisrael tells because of dam. Therefore, it's a forbiddenness to the goy, but he's not killed for it. And he says this is something no one else has pointed out. But these red Raz we find actually says so. I would seem from the words of the Rambam that it's forbidden to Ben Noach, but he's not killed for it, like every other Eivim and Achai. Since the majority of the two simonim, the esophagus and the windpipe, have been cut, it's called dead. Therefore, he would not be liable for Eivim and Achai on a kosher animal. But from the Lashon of the Ridvaz, it would seem it's forbidden and not killed even by a non-kosher animal, that with slaughtering it already begins to be dead. According to Ma'am Shiv, this would only apply to a kosher animal, because by a Jew, it would be forbidden if he slaughtered a non-kosher animal, and for a goy, he would not be killed for it. In Milchus Chinuch, the Mitzvah discusses what we say that Allah is like Avu. It says Loiseichal, should not eat, or Loiseichelu. It's forbiddenness of benefit. If that's the case, even Achai should be forbidden with benefit even for a goy. And Sochem, it says that even Achai is mutban for a Jew because it's like blood. Even though in Noach we don't have hekish, we don't have all these limudim, still it's admitted benefit even for Ben Noach, because again the idea is if it's permitted for a Jew, then it's permitted for Ben Noach to benefit. And since the Yisrael he can benefit, then Ben Noach can also benefit. From the Rambam Mitzleinu here by us, the Machon, even though it's permitted to a Jew, it's forbidden to Ben Noach, it could be that would be forbidden to benefit. The Maharal's of the opinion that there is no issue of benefiting from a limb that was taken from an animal by a goy.